Okay. Hey everyone, and welcome to today's live stream where we will be talking about introverted feeling and introverted feeling development. And I call this video Learning to Love Your Sensitivity. And it's because introverted feeling is the sensitive function. It is the most associated with sensitivity, not in the sensory sense, not highly sensitivity, not the HSP necessarily, though that can be as well, but rather with the sensitivity emotionally. And Carl Jung was actually really aware of this when he was writing about introverted feeling. He was already writing a lot about sensitivity, and his explanation was pretty simple. Because introverted feeling types carry emotions on the inside internally, that also makes the feeling deeper. The longer you hold on to a feeling without sharing it with other people, the more sensitive you become. And that's also a warning, something to be aware of when you're thinking about introverted feeling. It's also something to recognize when you're starting to feel a little bit more emotionally unstable or unsettled. If you start feeling frustrated, if you start feeling a little bit agitated or unruly or anxious, a lot of the time it can be because you are carrying too many feelings inside of you that you are unable to express outwardly. And introversion is not something static. It should not be something static. That's when you start falling in the grip. That's when your introversion starts becoming unhealthy. No, what you're looking for is that flow from where you're hearing and you're listening to and you're acknowledging your own feelings and your own voice and who you are, and you study and you take the time to listen to and hear yourself out, but also channel that outwardly through some kind of activity. So what you need is some kind of outlet for your sensitivity. And the key to developing introverted feeling is finding this outlet. And first, yes, the first step is simple. You need to find your inner voice. You need to think about who you are. You need to introspect. You need to get personal. And you need to embrace your own subjectivity. So that comes down to just listening to yourself, taking a minute, tuning out, ignore what everybody else thinks, ignore what's smart or what's realistic or what's logical or rational or what you should feel or all those matters, and rather focus on what do I feel, who am I, what do I do, what is my individuality, what's my purpose, why am I here, what do I live for. And when you become more aware of this, they also start realizing why an outlet is so important. Because when you know who you are and you know what your purpose is, you also notice that you have a mission. You have your own mission. You have something that is true to you. Perhaps you notice that you really love to write. You really like music. You really like helping other people. Perhaps you realize that it's really important for you to make YouTube videos, or perhaps you notice that it's necessary for you, or it's part of who you are to be kind to other people. You start realizing these things when you introspect, when you start thinking about yourself, who am I in flow, and what do I do, and what's unique about me. You also start realizing there's something special about you, something only you can do. Everybody has something special about them. Everybody has something that is really unique for them. And introverted feeling types need to find an outlet for this as soon as they realize this, and every time they start thinking about this and recognizing this in themselves. You can't let that desire for writing ebb out. You can't hold it back in yourself. You can't keep it away. If you love music, you can't not make music. If you like art, you should not keep yourself from doing art. You should be doing art. You should be writing. You should be making music. You should be doing whatever it is that you feel resonates with you as a person and with who you are and your unique purpose. And you should keep finding more about yourself. So that includes learning about your unique style and what's unique about how you think, and recognizing your own significance. And everybody has their own significance. Everybody has their own inner world, something about them that is unique to them. And with learning to love your sensitivity, it is also recognizing that when you are thinking about yourself and when you're thinking about life and money and work and friends and relationships, you also have to recognize the depth and how intimately you hold it inside of yourself and how much it means to you and how important it is. When you're too introverted or too stuck in yourself, you can convince yourself, you can start rationalizing away your feelings. You can start telling yourself you don't have any feelings, thinking about it. It's so easy to get demoralized and to start hitting down on yourself. And who am I? I'm just a person. And the whole world is against this. And I won't make any money doing this. And I won't have any chance if I put myself into this. And people won't understand. And so it's so easy to shut off. And in shutting off, it's focusing primarily on easy tasks. It's not easy to be a person or to be an individual. It's not easy to have your own subjectivity and the own things you want. It's so much easier to just go with the flow and to do what the system tells you and to just be a keg in the wheel. That's the thing you get into, the thinking. You start thinking that the system, it's easier to follow the system and to just force yourself to dismiss yourself and to focus on what the system wants. But it's actually really hard. It's really hard to do this. And you start realizing this as soon as you try, because it's really hard to force yourself to follow the system. It's really hard to force yourself to be a keg in the wheel. For some people it might be easy, but for you it's not. If you're an introverted feeling type, it's not easy because you're constantly thinking about engaging in your art form of choice, engaging in your own subjectivity, pursuing your own purpose, listening to yourself. It's so hard to shut that down because that voice keeps coming back, and those feelings keep getting invoked, and that sensitivity is always there. And the interesting thing is when you're shutting down your own sensitivity, like I could do when I was younger, I would tell people, oh, I don't have any feelings, so I don't care, it's not important, or I would dismiss myself. I got in the habit of dismissing my own sensitivity. And when people said, oh, you're upset, no, I would dismiss it. That's what I did. I dismissed my own emotions and my own subjective world to focus on what people thought I should feel in this situation, to focus on what was rational or smart. And that's how you shop yourself down. And that's turmoil just keeps building up. It is easy for other people to recognize that you're being sensitive and that you are in the state. It's easy for family members, for teachers, for coworkers and friends to notice when you're a little bit in the state, because it can be like when I'm sitting in that state, it's like I have this tense wall up, and I'm like in this whole robot mode, like this unfeeling state where I'm like really turned off. And everybody knows this is completely contradictory to my character. I am typically the most sentimental person at my workplace. Yeah, I've been called that, the most sentimental guy at work. And people come to me when they're looking for empathy, and they come to me when they want somebody to help them process something difficult, how to talk to somebody who's upset, how to deal with somebody who is like really excited about something and we're gonna have to say no, and how do you handle like all those situations. What gives me the power in erikthor.com and in developing all these theories, it's not science and it's not logic, it's not sitting and reading academic journals in psychology to find out statistically which personality type has which trait, and how do you define it, and how do you measure it, and what does the neuroscience say. No, what I do, it's a lot more natural in a sense, because what I'm doing is I'm just trying to empathize with other people. When I'm studying the ESTP, what I'm doing is I'm getting into that mental frame, and I'm trying to feel, how does an ESTP feel, and I'm studying them, and I'm trying to get inside of their head. So that's what I do. I read people like their books, and I listen to and I hear how their tone of voice, their word choices, and I think, why do they say that? What do they mean with that? Where does that lead? So I'm always introspecting, and I'm always focusing on people's intentions and deeper purpose and the whys of what they do. Not what they do, but the whys of what they do. So why are they upset? What makes them happy? What gets them feeling bad on a day? What gets them feeling stressed? So going into that person's state, and I do that all the time. I do it all the time. And I used to think this was introverted intuition or something, but it's just getting into and just listening to another person on a deeper level. And while sometimes I do feel like my actual listening skills could improve, at least I feel very proud of my ability to take on other people's feelings inside of me and feel what I would feel if I was in their shoes. So that's what I do a lot of the time. I try to feel what they are doing as if I was in their shoes. So when I'm hearing a story from a customer about something difficult that happened to them, I feel that inside of me as if I was that person feeling that thing. So when you're looking at it from a health perspective, introverted feeling types, we struggle with a whole bunch of issues in relation to that. And that is first, uh, identifying more with other people's feelings than with your own. So that is only hearing other people's struggles and dilemmas and focusing purely on what they are dealing with and what they are struggling with, and making it your purpose to help them and to heal them and to make things better for them. Making your emotions match up completely with what they are feeling. So if you're happy about something and somebody else is upset, well, then you force yourself to be upset with them. Or if they are happy and you're upset, you force yourself to be happy with them because you don't think you can allow yourself to feel that for yourself. So that's when you focus too much on other people. That's when you have an other mindset. You don't have a self mindset, you have an other mindset. So you're focusing purely on the perspectives of others. Or it is the aspect of numbing, and that's also equally important to talk about and to recognize. Numbing is basically when you're focusing on, or you're too obsessed with the inner, purely the inner, and you shut out the outer, and you don't allow yourself to get close to other people, or you don't allow yourself to connect with other people, or you keep yourself away from other people. And that might be hard to understand, but it's really just when you're so focused and so absorbed with your own emotions that you're not listening to or feeling or thinking about other people. You're so focused on, what do I want? And you're so focused on your own inner world that you're kind of living in fantasy. And you have friends and family around you, people around you that matter, and you have things around you that are important too. But I think often what can happen, and this is the numbing part of it all, is you change your own feelings about a situation to where you don't have to act or do anything. Nothing is your fault, nothing is your problem, nothing is your issue. Everything is just everyone is just an individual. You get so deep in the individualism aspect of introverted feeling that nothing is your fault, and everything is everybody else's thing. So you can't intervene or do anything about anything. You can only do something about yourself. So it's just that focus on the self and ignoring the suffering of other people, are really trying to tune it out. And I can understand why we do that, because it is hard to be conscious and to stay mindful when other people are having a bad time and when things are difficult. And we get in that where you there's a pendulum where you're sometimes hyper focusing on other people, and then you get into like you start feeling burnt out and you start like neglecting your own emotions so much, and eventually at some point it doesn't work anymore, and then you get into this situation where you become super self-absorbed and you shut everybody else out and you push your people away and you try to retreat to your own zone, and you're not communicating anything with anyone in this. You're not sharing how you're feeling, you're shutting it down, you're not allowing other people to communicate their feeling either. You're shutting people out. It's an active, that's the door slam, I think. That's when you're pushing people away to the point where you just don't want to deal with it anymore. And in extension, you're not dealing with yourself either. You're still not dealing with yourself. So what you're looking for, of course, is deal with yourself. Recognize your own voice while also remaining mindful of the voice of others. And that's the hard line of balance that we keep having to walk. Remain mindful even when it's difficult, and remain open and find an outlet throughout everything so that you can keep pouring yourself emotionally into what it is that is important to you. And sensitivity is really when you start caring a lot more about all the little finer things. There is no, like if you think about the world from an introverted thinking perspective of all kinds of facts and all kinds of data, all kinds of rules, all kinds of realizations and rationalizations of the world works like this, people generally think like that, the human mind is like this, our nature is like that, I always struggle with the thought of human nature, like from biological perspective. I always have difficulties with how biologists and Darwinists sometimes see human nature, like how they talk about love as just biological drive, or how they talk about how no person is meant to be like this, or no person is meant to do like that. I've always had difficulties with that determinism of it. What I realize when it comes to science, like because I can love science and I can appreciate science, what I realize is I always have to process science. I cannot just accept a scientific fact. I also have to process it and feel it and experience it and make my own story out of it. So I turn science into stories, and I also come to get personal interpretations of scientific truth. So that comes down to like, what does it mean for me if humans are like this? Or what do I think? Or yeah, so it gets down to a lot more of a qualitative level. So you start feeling about this, and that's when you recognize the sensitivity in it, is that when you have to process every scientific fact and you have to deal with everything about how the world works, you can't process it as fast as, say, an introverted thinker could. You can't just rationalize something because you also have to feel it. And you also have to experience it, and you also have to make sense of it for yourself. What does this mean to me then? And who am I then if people are like this, or if the world is like that? So it triggers interpersonal introspection. So it gets you going deep. And that's like, I can go so deep in this that, yeah, you understand the self-absorbedness in it, because it's when you're processing something, you're in your own mind, you're deep in your own mind, and you can get really deep in your own mind. And the deeper you get in your own mind, the harder it is to realize that there's a world around you, an actual world with people and with other things and other important things to deal with. And it can be hard to deal with this world sometimes, for me, because I have a tendency to not want to deal with it, or to want to avoid it, and to focus on myself. Ideally, I would just like to do my own thing, and I would just like to pour myself into writing or YouTube videos or whatever. But then there are facts around me, circumstances that I have to take into account. And that is like economy and work and all those things. So that's always a difficult balance for me. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts here? I'm gonna catch up with chat for a bit. Bethany was feeling discouraged about music. That's just a shame. How come? Prince studies music. Sue was writing about this. What did you write about it? Prince says, my INTJ friend said I had this kind of wall around me, even when I seemed open from distance. I think what he sensed was my inner feeling world that I don't let people go into. Hi, Meshek. Great to have you here. I always thought that everyone else could do that until I spoke about it one day. It was quite a revelation. Hey, Awakened. Glad to have you here as well. Iqbal says, hi, Eric. Great to see you do an introverted feeling video. I'll catch through the entire stream another time. Okay. I'll see you later. Kaniki writes, how do you know when you need to talk to someone? How do you know when you've been thinking and living in your head too much? I think the answer is, what are you thinking of? And you have to consult your own dreams and your own inner world to kind of know this. Just listen to yourself and ask yourself some questions like, do I want to talk to someone? Yes. And then that's the answer. You have to let yourself answer your own questions, and you have to ask questions to yourself. If you're wondering about yourself, just ask questions to yourself. So beyond that, it can be that you can find yourself wanting to talk to someone, but you might not want to talk to anyone currently around you. So you have to ask deeper questions and opening questions. Who do I want to talk to? None of these people. Okay. Where could I meet somebody I could talk to? Where could I meet somebody like-minded? Where could I go to feel understood? So you really need to get to that point as well. Then when it comes to feeling misunderstood, because that's really important to talk about, dealing with feeling misunderstood and handling that emotion. When I was a kid, I said the most difficult thing to me was feeling misunderstood. And sensitivity ties deeply into this, because when you're trying to make personal sense of something, other people can think you reject what they're saying. Other people might be giving you the facts and you have to process it. And other people think because you have to process it, you misunderstood it. Or because you have your own explanation for it and it's not what rational fact says, you misunderstood it. That's often the issue you get into. And that's when it comes to introverted feeling or introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, that's that dimension where people feel the most misunderstood, because that ties into their values and identity. These functions tie into what we feel is most important to us and what we value the most. So when other people tell us something and it comes from the other perspective of another function, we can feel that it's not true for us, but we can agree with it from that person's perspective. So that's a very important thing to recognize. This is true from the other person's perspective, but it might not be true from my perspective. That's a very important realization introverted feeling types have to go through. This person is not disagreeing with me. This person has their own explanation. And that's also important when you have to understand an introverted feeling type. The introverted feeling type is not disagreeing with you. They're not going against you. They're not ignoring scientific fact. They're not being illogical. They're just trying to make sense to it to them. And they need a process to this, and everybody has a process to this. So the process is also not necessarily the answer. When you're going into yourself and thinking about it, you have to let people have their process to find out the answer. And you can't simply expect everybody to see the world you do. Especially when you are a subjective type, you have to recognize that, well, so is everyone else on some level. And Awaken says, how do you perceive the workings of FI in an INFJ? Uh, well, when I'm talking about introverted feeling here, what I'm talking about is being an introvert and being a feeling type. So this is everything I said in this video applies to an INFJ, it applies to ISFJs, it applies to INFPs, and it applies to ISFPs. We're all like this. We're all a little more inclined towards being sensitive, towards being artistic, towards being empaths. A lot of us gravitate to that kind of role. So I'm not talking about feeling perceiving here. Not talking about that cognitive function. So it's a little bit different. Feeling perceiving, that's modesty, that's honesty, that's the process of listening to, interpreting something, processing something you hear, or formulating some kind of opinion about something, or making some kind of decision based on your values and who you are. Introverted feeling is the process of resonating with yourself, introspecting, who am I? What do I do? What's my purpose? What do I feel? Why do I feel a certain way? What is another person feeling or dealing with? What do they do? So it's two different functions. You're talking about introverted feeling versus feeling perceiving. Two completely different processes. Read about them, and so it's the introverted and it's the feeling types that are the sensitive types. It is the feeling and the perceiving types that are the honest types. So when you look at INFJ, what you're looking at is honesty, not honesty, kindness together with sensitivity. INFJs are the kind sensitive types. INFPs are the honest sensitive types. So you see the function, the same function, but it goes in a different direction. So introverted feeling towards kindness and helping other people, or having some kind of impact on others, or managing the world around you, or diplomacy, versus introverted feeling going in the direction of understanding people, getting a rapport with others, feeling and thinking about what other people are, what they do, who they are, what their message is, what your message is, trying to understand what other people say and what animals do and what they think. So two different directions, feeling towards perceiving or feeling towards judgment. So thank you all for joining up in today's stream, and so glad to have so many people here. Wow, I don't really want to end when it's so busy, but it's been great having you all here. Thank you all for joining up. Thanks, Saku. Sorry to hear you're feeling a little bit weird today. Thanks, CDNet. Thanks, Raylan. Thanks, Bethany. Thanks, KSNG. Thanks, Kaneki, for that question. And Awaken, of course, and Mishik, Susu, Tash Marie. Glad, happy Mother's Day to all mothers out there. And thanks, friends. So just a quick ending remark. Learning to love your sensitivity basically is letting yourself process, letting yourself ask yourself questions, allowing yourself time to introspect, allowing yourself time to get to know yourself, and allowing yourself time to feel and to think about what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. And then find an outlet, find things to do, because introversion is not static. It is a flow from the inside out. So that's why you need a pen. That's why you need to get your hands dirty. That's why you need to be involved in something, something that gives you an outlet for how you're feeling. Otherwise, it's just going to keep building up, and you're going to have all the feelings, but you're not going to have the introversion. So you're not going to have an outlet. So that's when sensitivity becomes oversensitivity. Whenever you let yourself feel something but don't let yourself express it, that's when it becomes being overly sensitive. Whenever you let yourself feel something to be sensitive and to get an outlet for it, that's when it's just sensitivity. That's when it's a healthy thing, a brilliant thing, an intelligence, Great to have you all here, and I hope to see you all in the next video.